the confidential one.
Oh, we took a bite out of it.
We just did your bits. That was it.
Okay.
Oh, I'm happy with that.
We are live. Okay.
Well done.
Everybody rush.
Oh, look, it's even come up in my feed.
Oh, I need to set up.
Joyous. The first thing I saw when I came up was my fists going into the air. I just feel like entering something in the chat, but I won't. Well, this 6:30. Session. So just confirming we are recording and live streaming. Where were we? This was a long time ago.
Question from the public.
So we were 1 minute and 25 seconds into Will's 3 minutes. So we can start now.
Refresh.
I'll be quick.
Called out what we're going to do, so let's do that. So, maybe you will.
Okay. So as I was saying, it was with great interest we witnessed this media release from the City of Prospect in accordance with the state government 2 weeks ago, saying that the code amendment had now been approved for the building and 500 apartments. We were very surprised about this, as we'd heard previously that 230 apartments is what was being looked at, and that would be enough to fund most of the 60 million for the PLP and the upgrades at the Oval. In fact, Council's own publication or brochure that was sent to all residents for them to provide feedback on for the code amendment. Funnily enough, there's no mention of this 500 apartments in here. And in fact, these buildings that I see that were listed could never fit 500 apartments in them. So can the council confirm when the decision was made that it would be 500 apartments? And can the council confirm that the CCH site will also now be developed as part of the PLP? And when will we see those drawings or plans with the 500 apartments? That's my question.
Thank you. I'm going to throw to the CEO for a concise answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In essence, the answer can be essentially covered off by attachment 5 of the agenda item which Council considered on the 16th of December 2005, where Council debated the merits of the draft code amendment and elected to move it onward for public consultation and consideration by the Department. Attachment 5 includes the full text and information concerning the code amendment, which references the fact that the code amendment scope covers not only the council-owned land on the corner of Kintalore and Main North Road, as well as what we call Eastern Wing, which is those areas on the eastern side of Prospect Oval, formerly community land, now operational land, but also includes those privately owned sites, one of which is owned by CCH and one of which is owned by Toyota on the corner of Wilcox and Main North Road. It's clearly outlined in the code amendment proposal that those sites are included in the council's code amendment, and I think the confusion here is that from a council perspective, we've always talked specifically about our land, and obviously that's been the focus of our master plan. The master plan includes council's site specifically, does not cover off on the CCH land, nor does it cover off on the Toyota land. However, the state government's announcement obviously covers the entirety of the code amendment area, which includes the CCH land and Toyota land, and certainly if developed to its maximum potential in accordance with the approved code amendment densities, could accommodate potentially that many units.
So can I just ask a quick follow-up question? So we can confirm now that the CCH site will be developed as well, because it's been announced.
We can't confirm that at all. It's not part of, as the CEO said, that's not part of the master plan.
Great. All right. Thank you very much.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Will. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, as private land, we don't have control over that land. I would expect that at some point it will be redeveloped. The question of what that land use looks like and the density to which it's developed is a question entirely for both CCH and Toyota.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions from the public? If not, we'll move on to item 7 on the agenda, petitions. There are nil. Item 8, deputations. There is one. 8.1, Susan Pinnock regarding Adelaide Parklands. Susan, would you like to? So we just need your name and your suburb for the purpose of the minutes.
My name is Susan Pinnock. I live in Rosetta Street, Collinswood, and have done so for 34 years.
So you've got 5 minutes, and I'll give you a 1 minute warning when you've got 1 minute to go.
Yep.
Over to you, Susan.
Thank you. I'm a retired teacher of science and have previously belonged to the Prospect Residents Association Committee. Whilst I'm a member of the Adelaide Parklands Association, I'm not representing the association today but myself. For some time, as have many others, I have been concerned about the ongoing impacts on our iconic and nationally recognised Adelaide City Parklands. Of the original 930 hectares of green space set aside in 1873, today there are 7 hectares remaining, of which 36%, 250 hectares, are under application to the North Adelaide Golf Club redevelopment and to MotoGP. There have been about 1,000 trees destroyed to date under the golf course redevelopment and the building of the Women's and Children's Hospital, with more destruction of trees in green space to come. These very trees and green space provide habitat to wildlife, clean and cool our air, contribute to health outcomes through physical activity and beauty, and they have First Nations significance. With home gardens in new builds becoming smaller or non-existent, public green space with its vegetation is even more important. The promise to replace each large tree cut down with 3 saplings does not replace the habitat provided by 100-plus-year-old trees. In a warming climate, this destruction of large trees is nonsensical. There are other venues perfectly suited to host professional golf and MotoGP, venues which would not necessitate the destruction of trees and habitat. Of a special concern to me is the following. Without consultation with the Adelaide City Council and adjacent local government associations, the North Adelaide Public Golf Course Act 2025 was passed in June last year. This Act took control of Parks 1 and 27A from the Adelaide City Council and converted the title from Crown Land to fee simple. This legislation allowed the government to completely sideline the Adelaide City Council from any decision-making process by bypassing local council jurisdictions and environmental protocols. This Act potentially makes other parks vulnerable. It sets a precedent. I understand that the MotoGP circuit design will require the removal of at least 45 trees. The old Formula One Grand Prix track on Victoria Park will be extended by 1.2 kilometres. This extension will occur adjacent to the wetlands and checkered copper butterfly conservation zone. The 100-year-old East Terrace playground, Glover Playground, will be moved. There will be extensive reworking of the current track for reasons of safety to bike riders. The Metropolitan Council surrounding the parklands are directly impacted by the works being undertaken for professional golf and now the Eastern Parklands for the MotoGP. Infrastructure works and the logistics of traversing main road networks for private and public transport over significant timeframes are of concern. After the 50,000-person online petition calling for protection of our parklands was rejected by the SA government, the only state government not to accept online petitions, a paper petition was put in place. This calls for a Legislative Council Committee to review the North Adelaide Golf Course Act 2025, the focus being the effects of bypassing planning, state and national heritage, Ghana heritage and site significance and environmental development safeguards. In the last few weeks, I have collected signatures for this petition. Anecdotally, it is apparent that there is a lot of angst in the community about the way in which this legislation has been enacted and the environmental damage that is being done to our parklands. This petition now numbers 17,000 signatures and is rising. There are enough signatures for this issue to now go to a Legislative Council Committee for review.
So just 1 minute, please.
There are 6 councils adjacent to the City of Adelaide Parklands, of which Prospect is one. It is desirable that the SA Government involves all 6 councils in a consultative and more collaborative process about the use of the parklands. This would allow them to truly represent their residents and, by extension, those living further afield but who benefit having a city within a park. 3 of the 6 councils, Burnside, City of Charles Sturt and the City of Norwood, Payneham and St Peters, have passed motions to request more information about the impact of changes in parkland use and to be involved in collaboration about the processes and plans involved. My recent letter to Council, 11th of July this year, asked, will the Prospect Council make similar representation to the State Government on behalf of its residents? I was reassured to learn that Councillor Christina Barnett is moving such a motion, one that is well argued. It highlights the importance of protecting the parklands from several perspectives, asks for information from the SA Government about the logistics of planned events and infrastructure, and most importantly, calls for consultation between the 6 encircling councils and the State Government on matters impinging on public green spaces. It is a motion that I suspect would be very well received by a majority of Prospect residents if asked for their opinions. I urge all councillors to support Councillor Barnett's motion. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Any questions for the Deputy? Councillor Backus.
Thank you for your deputation. There's an organisation called Eastern Region Lights. Have they been approached in regards to your cause?
I'm not sure what.
Oh, sorry. Maybe it's a rhetorical question, so maybe Christina Barnett. So I was just asking if the Eastern Region Lights. Okay. So I have read that from our Eastern Regional Alliance minutes that Adelaide City Council ACC has requested the support of ERA Council regarding the concerns. Sorry.
I can just provide a little bit of that if you'd
sorry,
like.
I was confused here.
So that came to us at our most recent ERA Mayors and CEOs meeting, and it was discussed robustly,
Okay.
and it was agreed that each council would make its own decision on that, and that ERA wouldn't collectively, as an organisation, come together and put forward a position.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Do you need that at all?
That's okay.
Okay, good.
Thanks. Okay, so... Oh, sorry.
I was just going to move to bring forward item 12.1.
One step ahead. So I'd like to recommend that we bring forward item 12.2.1. We'll just need a show of hands in order to change the order of business. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. So we'll move to that item. Just give me a minute to find it here. So item 12.2.1, motion of notice Adelaide Parklands. I'll just wait for Councillor Backer to... So the motion is on page 261 of your agenda. I take it, Councillor Barnett, you would like to move the motion?
Yes.
And I'm just going to get my trusty timepiece out. And 5 minutes, I'll give you a 1 minute warning.
Yeah, just a question first. Am I required to read out the whole motion because that will take up a lot of my time?
I don't think we need to do anymore.
All right, so it's as before us in the
As in the
agenda
agenda, yeah.
notes, and the rationale was also printed as well. So I will hopefully assume that everybody's read that. So I want to thank those in the gallery tonight who are supportive of my motion, particularly Prospect Council residents and representatives of the Adelaide Parkland Society. I also thank the deputy for her well put deputation. And my motion reflects growing concern that decisions affecting Adelaide's internationally significant parklands extend well beyond just the City of Adelaide, with communities across metropolitan Adelaide, such as ours, using and valuing these important public spaces. This includes residents in my ward, West Ward, that shares a boundary with the Adelaide Park lands along Fitzroy Terrace, as well as other residents and organisations that have expressed concern to me. Other local government councils, including those which share a common boundary with the Adelaide Park lands, are calling for greater transparency from the state government regarding the impacts of current and future developments in the Adelaide Park lands. Just for further information, what has been already mentioned, but I have read from our Eastern Region Alliance minutes on the 18th of June 2026 that Adelaide City Council has requested the support of ERA councils regarding the concerns raised by Adelaide City Council about the impacts on the East Park lands and as a consequence of staging the MotoGP. There were mixed views about this, as not all of the Eastern Region Alliance councils are directly affected. The Eastern Regional Alliance, for the sake of the gallery and the public, is a voluntary regional association of Eastern Metropolitan Council. City of Burnside, they've passed a similar motion. The City of Campbelltown, City of Nord Payneham St Peters have passed a similar motion. City of Prospect, the City of Unley and the town of Walkerville. And as the Mayor said, after some discussion, it was agreed by that group that the councils would decide on the matter individually and advise the Lord Mayor of the outcome of their council's decision. So I haven't put it in my motion, but I would hope that our Prospect Council Mayor and our CEO would also inform Adelaide City Council Lord Mayor Jane Lomax-Smith of the outcome of my motion tonight. So I really urge all my council colleagues to support my motion tonight. Be in solidarity with the other surrounding councils, City of Charles Sturt, City of Burnside. I believe that City of Unley also did in May 2026 a unanimous motion on a similar matter as my motion outlines. And the City of Nord Payneham St Peters. So I really do hope that this will be supported. It behoves us as a council, I think, to support the items in the motion about the importance of protecting environmental, cultural and heritage values of the Adelaide Park lands for all South Australians.
1 minute to go, Councillor.
Noting its heritage status as a place of outstanding heritage value to our nation. It stands up there with the Opera House as part of our national heritage status. So I think that's not something to be lightly dealt with. And progress, so it belongs not just to us and to all South Australians, but to all Australians. And also, we hope it won't, the current happenings by the state government won't progress affect the progress of the rural settlement of landscapes UNESCO World Heritage bid being progressed by the City of Adelaide. So I just think these are so important things to us and to our residents and to our state and to the nation that we should give it serious consideration. And so I hope you will support my motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Wynne, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think it's really important to ask the government questions and be transparent. And I think, in a time like this where information is so, drip fed to us, I think, the use of the current use, the land use, and in the future how it impacts us. I strongly commend the motion, and I encourage we all support it, because I think it doesn't hurt to ask the questions, and we have every right to ask questions and find out and get information about such a valuable piece of land, and that it's going to affect not only this generation but future generations to come. So I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? Points that haven't already been covered. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Councillor, for bringing this to us. I'm, and this is a really interesting motion. It's not strictly a City of Prospect issue, and we don't often make motions or pass motions on issues to do with other councils' activities or state government activities for that matter. But I'll go back to what the motion is asking for. Point one is recognising and affirming, and I think it'd be hard to argue against that. And then it's asking for a letter. So on the basis that it's asking for a letter, I'm not uncomfortable with it. But I am interested in other people's views on this. But it does feel a little bit like we're making commentary on another council's and in fact state government's issue, which we do from time to time. It's not without precedent. But this one is also very controversial. I think I could go and ask people in my street or in my suburb, and there would be people who would 100% support this, and there'd be people who would 100% support what's going on in terms of activation in that space. So it's very hard to vote on this on trying to represent the views of the residents. I've had, apart from the one letter from the deputy, I've not had anyone make representations to me on this issue, so it's not saying that that's come to me, but I certainly understand the passion more broadly and across the state on this. Also, look forward to Councillor Barnett as we talk about our PLP project in time, where we've assessed 133 trees, projects she supported to date, and look forward to her passion around how do we not get rid of that many trees in our jewel of our crown, which is Memorial Gardens. So I look forward to maybe a similar motion on that in time. But interested in hearing what other people have to say. But it's line ball for me at the moment in terms of whether I support it.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Nelson.
It's a very interesting point, and this is probably an odd occasion where I haven't yet concluded a view on this motion. I want to congratulate Councillor Barnett for her passion behind it. But the reason I find myself weighing up is two competing principles. On one hand, I firmly believe this council should advocate strongly on behalf of our residents whenever an issue directly affects the City of Prospect. And I'm also personally against the identified works and loss of trees required for a 4-day motorcycle race. So I just want that for the record. On the other hand, I've always believed that local government should be careful to remain focused on matters that fall within our jurisdiction and where we can genuinely add value. Just this week, unlike Councillor Group, since the agenda was released and social media posts uploaded, I have had a handful of calls from local residents, my local residents expressing their concerns regarding the parklands, but they suggested as a council we should stick to our lane, as they said, and not get involved with matters outside the jurisdiction. So based on that, I'm still considering where the appropriate balance lies, and much like Councillor Groot, I'm kind of very interested to see what other councillors have to say.
Councillor Stanton.
Yeah, once again, I absolutely support the sentiment behind the motion, but I'm on the fence as well, and I wondered if this motion overstepped what we do as a council in talking to state government. There's the other point that I had was, if I do support it, is there a downside? Is there anything that will come back to us? Is there any splashback, if you like? And we certainly wouldn't want that. The other question I have is, will what we do have any impact? Are we just doing something to look like we're doing something? To be a part of the crowd that is, we're putting up a placard. I'll probably support it. I see at this point, I see no negative, and I see more positive than negative. And if I'm not representing people out there who want the race or support it, I apologise now. You've not come up to me and said, please don't vote for this. So I think I'll probably support it because on balance, there is more positive than negative.
Thank you. Any further points?
I'm also, I read this motion and thought this doesn't directly affect Prospect Council. I mean, we all have our personal views. I support a lot of this, but I can see that it is not one of our issues. And there's been one other instance where I felt this kind of motion has come into council, and did it fit the legislative requirements? I mean, in this one, I actually looked through this motion and apparently it does, but not based on any, you know, supporting other councils, but more so on, you know, voicing or, you know, our opinions on government sort of policy, that kind of thing. So it does cover that. Hasn't sort of, you know, it's not sort of on the fence there, but so I'm not going to sort of give my personal views on this one, but at the same time I do understand that, you know, it's good to have that extra information and some, you know, there is interest community-wide on this one, so probably will support it, but I did have a problem with the fact that this didn't really, wasn't something that affects our council directly, and I think in the future I probably would come down harder on this one and perhaps vote against it purely on the fact that I don't like seeing things that don't affect us coming into our council here, so I will support it, but I'm not happy that, it's...
Thank you, Councillor Holler. Any further discussion? Not going to get a vote on this one because there's only 7 there. Noting that it's asking that we're seeking advice on the impacts of the work, this is not a motion that says we're against what's happening. So that's my point I'd like to make. I'm also interested in the concept of, you know, a few of the comments staying in our lane and not commenting on things that happen outside our boundaries, which we often say boundaries are just lines on the map. And I think that, not that I've got any examples, but if we think about it, there's many significant movements that have grown to become almost global issues on the basis that people don't just think about the impact on our turf. That could be a suburb, it could be a state, it could be a country, it could be a region. And I've seen leaders at different levels of politics come out strongly against things that are happening across the other side of the world because there could be global impacts and it's seen as the right thing to do. This is not at the level of a global impact scenario, but I just am interested in some of the views expressed around the table that if it's not within our 4 walls, we shouldn't care about it. I don't personally agree with that. So again, I'm not voting on this tonight, but I did want to just reiterate that this is seeking advice and clarity, and I think sometimes the right thing to do is to think outside our small jurisdiction and consider the broader impacts. I'll hand back to Councillor Barnett to sum up now.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I do find it rather strange that some councillors don't think it's in our remit, when quite clearly under 2 Part B of my motion, the letter reflects that all councils in South Australia have retained the right under the Local Government Act 1999 to advocate for their communities on state government issues and developments. And this is the whole legislative basis, there is one, for raising concerns from our council. We've raised concerns and issues to the state government and in quite strong terms about planning legislation. We've raised issues and supported and gone against perhaps some things about reconciliation. We've actually become, and I don't think it's ever been undone, we're a nuclear-free council. So I just think, well on that, some of you who think it's not in our remit. So I think I really encourage you to think, and I think, quite frankly, it's a bit of a low shot under the belt for Councillor Groot to be saying about one of our projects and the trees. In fact, if you add up, we're trying to find places to plant trees in our city. I think that we've also been going to plant more trees in our other project. So I'll leave it on a good note because I just really implore you to stop and think that you do have the legislative and the moral right to represent your residents and take the lead, as we have done so many times in this city. A small council that really punches above its weight, and I think that we have lots of mainly through our mayor and our CEO and our staff have lots of dealings with the state government, and I think that the feeling is there. We don't always agree with what the state government at the time may do, and they may not agree with some things that we've done when I was mayor. The same, it hasn't changed since the year 2006 when I was mayor. So I just really urge you to support this. It is a very important thing to do, and I think as a Prospect Council we should stand up for some of these moral issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimous.
Not that one, anyway.
Okay, so we're going to go back to the regular order of the agenda now. So item 9 on the agenda, questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple, in fact. So I just want to start with a couple of updates, if possible. Can I get an update on the potential for electric vehicle infrastructure being installed within the City of Prospect?
CEO.
Mr. Delano, are you able to provide an update, Councillor?
Certainly, through the chair. So members will recall, and I think this is in confidence, so I have to be careful, that they did...
Only say what you can say.
Did support progressing with a preferred contractor to roll out EV charging stations. That project has taken a long time to get mobilised with the preferred party. We are now down to, I believe, one site, and that will be progressed, and we're getting close with legal agreements, and the intent is that hopefully in the coming months we can make a start.
Great, thank you. The second one is, can we also get an update on the Churchill Road drainage project?
CEO.
Mr. Delano.
Through the Mayor. There will be a fulsome response provided in the upcoming August council meeting as part of the quarterly projects report. That project has been progressing. There has been one significant element that has not been progressing part of the project, which is effectively the tunnel boring aspect, due to some significant subsurface anomalies that have been located within the first drive. There's been, for the last 2 months, there's been a significant amount of works going through what that means on a whole range of fronts, contractually, between the contractor and subcontractor, as well as finding an available time slot to actually physically remove these anomalies. There is a solution. The extent of impact on council is within the construct of our available contingency to manage at this point. So I haven't sought necessarily to escalate the matter to council, other than the fact that we're going to experience a couple of month delay in the delivery of that project.
Can I just check, just supplementary on that, has that been reported back to council as yet?
Mr. Delano.
It's waiting for next month's report, isn't it?
So through the Mayor, there will be a report coming to August. I'll have to check as to whether there's been some comms gone through to see update. I believe there has been, and probably a month or so ago. But I can just take that on notice.
Yeah. But not publicly, is my point.
No.
Okay. I just heard Councillor Barnett mumble, or not mumble, that's unfair, state in a low voice, doesn't he read his reports? I thought that was an important thing to have on the public record, and that's why I asked the question. Next question, I just want to move to PLP for a bit. and apologies, some of these will dovetail a little bit into what Will had to say, and I wasn't aware of what the deputy was going to, or what the question without notice was going to be from Will. Has council staff agreed with either developer or a third party or government the number of units to be, or number of properties to be constructed on Prospect Oval as part of the PLP project?
I can give a short answer, and that is no, but I might
The answer is
see
no.
if the CEO has any more to add.
Yep. Okay. How has the number of 500 apartments come to, given it was mentioned in the media event recently held at Prospect Oval by the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and the Minister for Housing? So how was that number quoted?
Just a point of order, the Deputy Mayor wasn't present at that
Oh,
meeting.
apologies. I was told he was. So.
What was it? Was the
I
question?
wasn't
Wasn't
either.
invited.
Don't think any of us were.
Check your letterbox. What was the question again?
I'm just trying to understand how that number of 500 came to be.
Further to what the CEO explained to the question without notice regarding looking at the entire area of the code amendment and looking at the potential yield if the entire area was developed, is the CEO could probably say it better than me.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Look, we don't have control over the media statements made by the Department of Planning. However, our sense is that the department took the code amendment envelopes that council considered and debated on the 16th of December, which do form the basis of the approved code amendment, and they've applied a standard underlying base figure of apartment size and yield, common area, and potential outcome based upon the building envelopes approved within the code amendment, and they've come up with a number of around 500. But I can't be clear on. I can't say other than that's how we feel they've done it, and it seems to make sense based upon the numbers.
Yeah, and look, agree that we can't control that, but what we can control is whether we repeat it. That wasn't a question. Has this number been reported to us previously?
And CEO, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, through the mayor, I don't believe so. No.
Okay. Can I just also? Oh, sorry.
If I may, members, we've master planned council's owned area, and the proposals that we've put to market are based upon that. The master plan that you've approved is based upon that. Now, the code amendment approved area obviously goes outside of council's land. That is of state interest, obviously to the minister. Hence the reason why I think the announcement was broader than simply the council side.
Yeah. Okay. Is this number, the 500 number, related at all to the Housing Australia Future Fund, which requires a minimum of 500 dwellings to be built to be eligible for the partnerships at Scale Stream?
I'm going to say I haven't heard that at all, but I'll ask the CEO to confirm.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, no, it's not.
That is
Certainly not from our perspective.
It's an interesting coincidence that 500 number is bandied by the state government and is also part of the federal government.
That may be an interesting question to put to the minister in question time.
Yeah, he's not here, unfortunately.
Have the opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I know. With that notice.
Thank you. Any further questions with that notice, Councillor Wynn?
I just have a question in relation to Councillor's question about the EV charges. Did you say it was only one site being closed now?
CEO is listening, but
Yeah, Mr. Delaney, can you clarify for the council?
Through the Mayor, through the investigations that have occurred with the preferred partner, EV charging partner, and I'm just being coy because I just can't 100% confirm that we've actually released that from confidence. It's been whittled down to one site. That one site being on Churchill Road, adjacent to Charles Kane Preserve.
any further questions with that notice, Councillor Barnett?
Yes, a resident brought it up actually tonight with me. We have on our Prospect Road, just outside this building, on the eastern side of Prospect Road, some markings and blue and white patterns that are part of an experimental experiment done by one of our universities and I assume with the state government, and it was put down on our road. But people have been saying to me that it's, and I did answer a survey about that, the road, the experiment out there. So I'm just wondering, my question is, how long are we going, is it going to be kept there? And what are the results of any survey to show if it is actually slowing traffic down?
So yeah,
Mr. Delanner.
Through the Mayor, we certainly were informed in respect to the trial. I haven't seen any further correspondence in respect to the results of any monitoring that have occurred, but it's certainly something that should be followed up at some point. Haven't come back to us that I'm aware of in respect to that matter, but certainly something that we'll take on board and give members an update through the CEO update.
Thank you.
any further question for that notice? If not, we'll move on to item 10, reports for decision. 10.1, implications of the draft local heritage survey on the Prospect Lifestyle Precinct. Recommendations on page 4. Do I have a mover for this motion? Deputy Mayor Nelson would like to speak to the motion.
Absolutely, very happy to support this. I think this report is exceptional and demonstrates a sensible and balanced approach. As we all believe that heritage is incredibly important, but heritage listings should only occur where the statutory criteria are genuinely met. It should never be used simply because a place is well loved or holds fond memories. In this case, we have an independent expert advice that concludes these items do not meet the threshold for local heritage listing, but at the same time, the report clearly acknowledges their social, cultural and community significance, and I think that distinction is very important. What I particularly support is the recommendation does not seek to erase our history. Quite the opposite. It commits Council to recognising and celebrating that history through interpretation, public art, commemorative features, storytelling, adaptive reuse of significant elements and a contemporary facility that allows the Prospect RSL to continue serving our community well into the future. Heritage is about preserving what is important. Sometimes this means preserving a building, other times it means preserving the stories, the memories and the community connections that give a place its meaning. I believe this recommendation achieves that balance. It protects what is genuinely important while allowing the flexibility to deliver a precinct that future generations will also value. Based on that, I'm pleased to support the motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nelson. Is there a seconder for this motion?
Oh, thank you.
Councillor Nguyen would like to speak to the
Yes,
motion.
I concur with Councillor Nelson's speech. I think a great deal of care and time has gone into reviewing the Prospect RSL Club, the JC Gate and the Kent Farms Gate. While these places are very important and these places have great community sentiments and it holds a lot of memories for local residents, the independent review found that they do not meet the formal requirements of local government listing. I believe Council should respect this process and focus on finding other meaningful ways to recognise their history and the contribution they have made to Prospect. I strongly encourage administration to explore other ways to ensure that the identity and significance of this history is captured and preserved so these stories can continue to be shared with our future generations. This could include working with local schools, cultural communities, the RSL, sporting groups and long-term residents to develop public art, interactive signs, educational projects and community events that celebrate the people and stories connected to these important places. So I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. Any further discussion of points that haven't already been raised? Councillor Backer.
Yeah, I had a variation. It's just in relation to the RSL.
You can speak to it whilst we're getting the colours right. For those who can see.
So is it I speak to the variation, and if the variation is expected,
So
then I speak.
you can. Yeah, so you can speak now, and then we seek the lead, the mover and seconder, and then that's it.
I'm just wondering if I speak now. So it's just regarding to the RSL building, because I know when we went out for consultation, there was a lot of love for this building, and I think it is a really good representation of mid-century modern. And just for members to acknowledge that there are actually two reports. We've got a heritage report that was done by another consultant, quite extensive, and not just on the PLP area, but the whole of the of Prospect. And I'd hate to think that in voting for this regarding the great work that's been done with the other heritage report, I think capturing these things potentially in the new build, the foundation stone, which is mentioned even by Dash Architects as being of significance, and certainly the feature glass windows were seen as a positive thing by a community in early consultation. And with good design, we can incorporate that in a bar area or as a room divider or something, and I just don't want that to be lost. But more broadly speaking, this actually represents a rescission motion. So the removing the items was actually lost at the strategic planning committee recently. So where we said resolves to exclude the Prospect RSL Club, JG Heddle Gate, Ken Farmer Gates from the proposal to initiate the code amendment, that motion was actually lost. So just to highlight, this is actually a rescission motion, which is fine under the... No?
It's not.
Just clarify.
Through the Mayor, because the resolution was lost, there's no decision. Therefore, there is no decision to rescind.
My mistake.
That's just a recommendation.
And yes, the role of the SPDPC is to provide recommendations to council. Whether council chooses to take them on board is up to the chamber.
Right. Okay, sorry, my confusion. So just in regards to that, look, I'm swithering about the motion. I actually think there's a lot of merit in heritage listing, and I don't think we should go out to the communities being scared of local heritage listing. If we have a look at the cinema, so we know that the Glove Factory was heritage listed, and in redeveloping that, they incorporated a display and actually did the artwork. And then we also had Sunny's. We lost Sunny's, and that's been redeveloped, and that was local heritage listed. We had this building here, it was locally heritage listed, and we developed around it. We had Rosary School, and that was redeveloped. So in local heritage listing, I don't think you need to scare people and say you can't do anything. What it says is by legislation, this is significant. And as part of the planning process, it really encourages the developer to include that. And I think, unfortunately, if it's just something that's a nice to do, it might be the next council or through, managing budgets, some of these things can get lost. So I'd actually really like to promote heritage listing, because remember, we're going out to all our residents and building owners throughout the city of Prospect to say there's areas that we'd like to local heritage list or preserve. So I think it's a bit, not say double standards, but I think we need to reflect the fact that, you know, this was a recommendation from the initial heritage architect. So I'd like to see the changes kept in, but at the same time, I think we need to recognise there are two reports and they do actually have conflicting sentiment around those items. So personally, I'd like to see the items kept in, but if other members are minded to vote this way, at least retaining the foundation stone and elements of the glass window would be a better outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Becker. I'll now ask the mover and the seconder for a yes or a no. Mover? And it's a no. So that is now back to the original. And I'd now like to open up for any further discussion, any points that haven't already been made. We'll go Councillor Blunt and Councillor Creek.
Yes, I support the motion. One of the members of the history group has pointed out to me tonight that in Part 6, the Firs of Dot, and in the Heritage report, it's incorrect to call the Prospect RSL honour boards. We should be removing RSL from that. They were the honour boards that actually sat inside here in our town hall, and then they were moved and placed in the RSL hall. So we should, to be correct, both in the report and in this, anywhere in this motion, should remove RSL from that. So,
is there another better name, Councillor?
It's just called the Prospect. They're referred to as the Prospect. Where have you got it now?
Scroll up to the first bullet point, please.
It's the Prospect Honour Boards. That's how they're referred to.
So that could be a variation that you might put forward to remove the RSL.
Well, I'll put forward a variation. And
just to remove the RSL?
Yes.
Okay, seek the indulgence of the mover and the seconder. I'm getting a nod, and I'm looking at Councillor Lewin, who's looking at the screen.
Could we just double check to see if that is correct before we remove it already?
It's probably a reasonable point, yeah. I'm just going to ask for a yes or a no. That's all I'm allowed to do. Sorry, Councillor.
I know that they're not the RSL honour boards. They're members of the...
Sorry. Yes or a no, Councillor?
Sorry? Yes.
So a yes to remove RSL or a no to not remove it? Oh, you to keep it in there. So the mover has said yes to removing RSL. I need a yes from you, and if we get a yes, then we remove RSL. So it's a yes. Okay, so we're going to remove RSL.
They reside in the RSL hall, but they're not the RSL honour boards.
Great. All right. You probably got a short amount of time still, Councillor.
Yes. To the other point, the Jade Heddle Gates, I did further investigation and there was no link to I've done extensive research, and the only link possibly with the City of Prospect for Jade Heddle is that he was on the district council way back in late 1800s. So I concur with the history report about that. Also, there's another point that's missed out with the RSL hall, and it relates to what is intended to be kept. About the foundation stone, there are two stones. One is on the outside wall near the entrance, which was I think done by the Premier or Blackburn VC, and the other one is inside. That was a year later. So both of them should be kept. One was done by the Premier of the time, and the other one was done by Brigadier Blackburn VC. So I think
30 seconds, Councillor.
So I would like a variation to be able to include that as an identified heritage.
So we can only allow two variations per
Yes,
motion.
well, I'm
So
asking.
we've had two already, so that yours is the second one.
Well, how many are we allowed to have?
Two.
Two?
Yep.
Well, am I continuing my variation?
No, you're done with the variations. There's no more variations that we can allow. Councillor DeBacker requested one and you requested one.
Yes.
So that's the two that we can allow.
All right. Oh, well, I'll have to do it through some other avenue then.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? Councillor Grigg, yes.
Yeah, look, I just had to pose this question, and I think I'm probably wrong, so that's why I'm asking as a question. With Councillor DeBacker's variation, does that not automatically roll over to an amendment to be voted upon?
I wouldn't have thought so. My understanding is if the variation is approved, then it becomes the motion. If it's not approved, then revert back to the original motion, and the councillor could have sought it as an amendment instead, but
Okay. chose
a variation.
Okay. And so similar for Councillor Barnett, her changes could be an amendment had she chosen to do that.
Someone could move an amendment at
Um,
this point in time still, because
yeah.
not everyone's spoken. So,
So I just had a couple of questions.
You're speaking now.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm not going to move an amendment. So I had a couple of questions. So the Hoskins Willis Heritage Survey recommended listing, Dash recommends not listing. I'm just trying to understand why it is we are taking one view and not the other, and have we considered getting a third review done?
CEO, I'd like to ask that question.
Mr Pearce, can you speak to this? It may have been something discussed at SPDPC.
Through the Mayor, it wasn't discussed at SPDPC. What I can say is that the report from Hoskins Willis was a draft, and the matters around heritage listing, I would say, it's fair to say, weren't interrogated at any great detail because of the volume of them. There was about 21 of them. They were suggestions at that point. And so we looked at the PLP ones, obviously, because of the potential clash between the master plan direction and this, and wanted to bring it to members' attention. So therefore, the brief to Dash Architects was to provide a level of rigour and exploration, understanding against the heritage criteria that the first report didn't go into necessarily. Hence, we've got the information in the latter report summarised for consideration. Did we consider going to a third? No.
The report talks a lot about heritage listing constraining redevelopment, and I think that's a matter of fact, so I'm not arguing against that. But isn't the test, the heritage test, supposed to ask whether something has value, not whether it makes redevelopment more difficult? Question mark.
Statement or question?
Question mark.
CEO.
I think through you, Mr Mayor, the report bears that out, and I think the question of whether or not the value crosses the threshold merit protection, I think, is the key question. The report covers that. I think the question over whether or not any particular professional believes that any particular site merits heritage protection is clearly a matter of opinion, informed by professional credential and experience. And I think what you see here is a broad and general review of the entire city that remains as yet unfinished, or an incomplete process, where certain sites, including some of these, have been identified potentially for protection, or at least have been identified as sites worthy of further consideration for protection, I think is to Mr Pearce's point, versus a more detailed magnifying glass level assessment undertaken by a separate professional body that seems to have gone into more detail and more depth, coming to a different conclusion. I think there's no getting around the inconsistency in those two positions, and frankly that's the position the council are invited to consider.
I think there's a perception issue here, regardless of what the reality is. There's a perception issue that council has asked for a report done by one organisation. They've done it, it's in draft, I'm not sure when it's coming to us. Then that did not give the answer that is consistent with the direction of PLP. So therefore we've gone to another company, asked for their more in-depth assessment of heritage. They've come back with an answer which is consistent with the PLP project, and we've accepted it. And so I'm not making any assertions there whatsoever. I want to be very clear about that. But I think from a perception point of view, people could look at the council and say, well, you didn't get the answer you wanted from the first one, so we'll go to a second one. And I think not going to a third might encourage that level of thinking by some people in our community. I was interested in the issue around community consultation, and I'm a bit torn as to whether this should have gone out for community consultation or not. It didn't. But I'm really interested, and we've got an RSL committee member here, or at least an RSL member here, that we seem to have a lot of engagement with the RSL committee. And so, again, from a perception point of view, it looks like we might be making a decision based partly on what the RSL committee has been saying to us. So I just want to understand what was the extent, and I know it's in the paper, but what was the extent of the engagement with the RSL committee, and how much did their view influence the outcome put to us tonight.
I think the first part of that question is something that can be answered. The second part I don't think can be answered, to be honest, but CEO?
Mr. Pearce, are you able to add anything beyond what's in the paper to support an answer?
Yeah, through the Mayor, I think the RSL consultation has been a journey. The RSL membership on the FUG, particularly the Facility Users Group, and all the way through, the message has been that the RSL narrative around PLP is bigger than just that particular set of rooms and the bricks and mortar, the failing bricks and mortar that everyone acknowledged are, in existence. It is all about what you and a number of the councillors have said tonight about the value in that space and what it brings. So the collaboration and the journey on the Facility Users Group has been a direction that has been pushed through the local president and also the wider chapter to talk about things such as the air raid shelter, memorial gardens, the arches, and how any future planning, whether it be a multi-use recreation facility or whatever that might end up looking like, enhances, lifts and promotes the RSL across the entire precinct, rather than it being kind of tucked away in the bowels of the building as it sort of is now. So yes, they've been involved all the way through and are supporting the sort of direction, the vision and the uplift of the RSL story across the whole precinct. So therefore, obviously, we have to then talk about the bricks and mortar, which is where we're at here. And I suppose we hopefully captured in that report for members to see this is all about the value story, as well as preservation of elements of the existing bricks and mortar to preserve that particular narrative piece as well.
Thank you. Just a couple more. The report talks about viability impact to the project if these are listed. Have we estimated financial loss or cost, additional cost, if they were heritage listed? Do we understand a sort of an amount that's attached to that?
I'm going to say I haven't seen anything myself. I'll check that in with the CEO.
Mr. Pearce, do we have a sense of what the potential financial impact of the project would be if part or all of these heritage listings were to proceed?
Through the Mayor, not specifically. It's more about opportunity cost in terms of the numbers that we've consistently gone to the public with about, for example, green space and that kind of thing. Those metrics would be altered if all of a sudden you have that space that has to potentially down the track remain, and it would mean that instead of a shared use, multi-use facility with cricket and RSL, you would have to re-strategise the future, and so therefore you'd be applying for funding for sole use cricket as opposed to share use cricket and RSL. So it's not there's not a specific number, no, that's been contributed to a cost. It's more about the issues that we would face in terms of unlocking additional green space, and then the inability to bundle shared use into the future. So more so that than specific additional costs.
If I could just add to that, I think intuitively it frustrates part of the master plan in terms of that square at the northeast corner of the Prospect Oval area where the RSL currently resides. Obviously, it would force some consideration as to renewal and uplift costs for the existing building to restore and preserve it, which would be required pursuant to heritage listing and to make good the building and improve its current condition. But of course, the back end of that is, as Mr. Pearce has indicated, it would de-scope and de-scale a replacement cricket facility. I'm not sure that's going to be of dramatic financial impact to the project, but it will impact the various clubs, and obviously the amenity layout of a future delivered master plan will need to be considered in that context. I think there's definite challenges there.
Yeah. The one thing I am supportive in the paper tonight is that there are some mechanisms to make sure that we do acknowledge local history in other ways. I just want to understand what's the binding mechanism to make sure that happens, and has that been included in the request for proposal?
Mr. Pearce?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand the question through the mayor.
So the report talks about the items that aren't going to be listed. We will find other ways to recognise that history. How do we bind that into the project? Because my second part of that question is it in the request for proposal? I suspect it's not. But how do we, as a council, and whoever's here in a year or 2 or 3 years' time talking through this, how are they going to remember? Oh yeah, we need to make sure that's in there. How do we bind that as part of the project?
Mr. Pearce?
Thanks for the clarification, Councillor. Look, we haven't yet built a set of detailed design guidelines for a joint venture proponent. What we have done is given very specific design guideline principles in the RFP that do deal with the honouring of the RSL story in particular. Again, it's been a strong feature of the messaging through those principles. But the next stage, once we go through an RFP, and should council find an offer that is one that they would accept to move forward with, a very early part of that process is the establishment of some very tight design guidelines in terms of interface, public realm, and areas that would include, how do you, for example, uplift the elements of an RSL in design and that kind of thing. We're not at that point yet. That is, and I would suggest in the current roadmap, potentially that could be in the next 6 months.
And my last question is just in the report on page 9, it talks about CRG noted that further information should be required to properly understand and assess its significance. This is the gates. Members consider that the additional historical context should be established before any proposal to include the gates within a local heritage listing is advanced. Now, we're not going ahead with the local heritage listing, but was that a recommendation from the CRG? Was it something that we are going to act upon at all in terms of trying to understand better its significance, or does that fail as a result of us not heritage listing?
So, Mr. Pearce, your thoughts on that?
Through the Mayor, again, look, I think the CRG in particular had there was a sort of a strong emphasis on the disparity between the Ken Farmer gates, not so much Heddle, which are a very small set of gates in front of the Croquet Club. The Ken Farmer was a legend in this city and a legend in this state, and he's been honoured by, okay, there's Ken Farmer, like there's an end, but really the gates themselves are, are broken, and they're kind of unbefitting of the honour that somebody like Ken, that legend ought to have. And so there was a view there, well, what are you doing about that? And it's pretty much in the same category as, the RSL. We're not yet ready to, talk to a joint venture partner about how are you going to elevate the status and turn something that right now is, dilapidated set of gates and, hidden behind the mounds into something that sort of is befitting of a legend like him. And so that, those conversations, those discussions, and how that, if takes effect in the form of a, fit out design guidelines, contractually binding document, the council can put, will involve, consultation with elected members. We're not quite there yet. But that is definitely the intent of the CRG, the intent of the PCG, and the direction that we are hoping to take should the project continue.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I had. Can we take it in parts?
You have to check in to see whether there's any. Yeah, I think that looks like we can do that.
Thank you.
So, is there any further discussion? Councillor
question.
Leslie.
Just professionally, did Hodgkins Willis, the original, have right to reply? I just feel one was a draft report and the other one was a report. You know, professionally speaking, you'd want to get that feedback. I'm just wondering, because just for the validity, obviously we're going out for Heritage Report for other items around the precinct. They had right of reply to say, just through the chair.
I'm going to have a stab and say they haven't, and I don't know whether we would allow them to. Maybe a different question might be able to provide them with feedback. So, yeah.
Mr. Pearce, can you speak to the potential interaction between the two respective heritage consultants on the two projects?
Yeah, through the Mayor, look, I'm not sure that right of reply is really how I would describe what happens next with Hosking Willis. What would have happened is their draft went to the SPDPC, their next sort of finalised report will come to SPDPC again, to that committee to again recommend next steps. And what happens then is that there's effectively that committee endorses for council to accept and make a decision on a proposal to initiate a code amendment, and then those items go out to public consultation. We haven't sort of said to them, right, you now must read this other report and, you know, reconsider your views. Their views are their views. We respect them as much as we respect Dash. So it's just that their views were very, at this stage, rudimentary and did not follow the full course of applying the necessary criteria. They might bring their final report back to SPDPC with half the items in it. And yet that's just the process where they're at. So the next SPDPC, if you're interested in, is August, in a month's time, approximately, and we do expect to get their final commentary and their final reports, and that discussion will be had then. But we're not asking them for a right of reply necessarily. They're a respected consultant, as are the others.
So, if there's no further discussion, let's move back to Deputy Mayor Nelson to sum up.
Just a couple of points that just come up during debate. It is always difficult when considering variations. We're going to get to use obviously yes or a no. But when considering these, I note that they're retaining additional items in the RSL is already included in the first dot point of item 6 that states that other items of significance. Hence, I only denied the variation as I consider it would have been redundant, adding them to a fourth dot point that was not relevant to the RSL. Also note that the comment about the PLP, and I don't consider that this report made any recommendations including or excluding any items because they are inconvenience to PLP. It makes recommendations because the independent review found that they do not satisfy the statutory tests for local heritage listing, and the impacts on the PLP must be a secondary consideration, not the primary justification. So this is an important point because it keeps our decision making grounded in evidence rather than preference or convenience. And I believe the report's measured, evidence-based, respectful of heritage, and offers a practical alternative that honours the precinct's history while allowing its future to evolve.
Thank you, Mayor. So we'll take it in parts. Part 1, all those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Part 2, all those in favour? Against? Motion carried.
Division.
Stand.
Oh, that's better.
Yes, good.
Okay, part 3, all those in favour? Against? Motion carried.
Division.
Stand.
His standing is healthy.
I don't forget he's sore back now.
Depends what you do for a living.
Exactly.
Part 4, all those in favour? Against? Up to do. Part 5, all those in favour? Against? Carried.
Division.
Part 6, all those in favour? Against?
Division.
Carried.
We did. We changed it 3 years ago.
Part 7, all those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously.
Just for your knees.
Just for my knees? Yeah, good, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item 10.2. 250B Churchill Road, Prospect SA Networks easement recommendation, page 188. Do I have a mover? Nelson's itching.
Sure. I've got a few points here, but I don't think too much needs to be said. It's a pretty rudimentary motion. Put it to the floor.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stannon, anything to add? Any discussion, Councillor Backer?
Yeah, supportive. It'd be great for the Public Art Committee to get some skins on them, because no doubt we'll be cleaning graffiti off them in no time. So take that to waste.
If there's no further discussion, Councillor Nelson, I take it you'd like to sum up?
Summed up.
Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. 10.3, Resilient East Climate Action Plan, recommendation, page 205. Do I have a mover? Councillor Stanton would like to speak to the motion.
No, good, thanks.
Deputy Mayor Nelson, I take it you're seconding.
Yeah, I would like to say a bit on this. I will be supporting it, although I am concerned that a lot of these items are not already considered business as usual for us. While this report's presented as a climate action plan, I actually see it through a different lens for me, as this is fundamentally a risk management document. I think the local government has a responsibility to identify foreseeable risks and ensure we are prepared to respond to them. And whether those risks relate to extreme heat, flooding, ageing infrastructure, rising insurance costs, and the well-being of our staff and community, they will have the potential to impact council's operations, finances, and service delivery. So ultimately, this is about ensuring City of Prospect remains resilient, financially responsible, and well prepared for future challenges, whatever form they may take.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nelson. Any discussion, any further points that haven't already been raised? Councillor Hunt.
Can we take it in parts? And I have something to say. I'm just going to...
We could take it in parts, yes.
Okay, I'll start off by saying I don't support net zero. It's easy enough to support this climate action plan because on the surface it appears innocuous enough, but it's not. It's part of a much broader framework, which I think, in the long term does have implications. The recap was funded by a $90,000 grant by the federal government Disaster Ready Fund. Government's net zero targets and associated regulatory frameworks and resultant reorganisation of industry and production carries significant risks to economic growth and long-term financial sustainability. I recognise I'm an outlier on this one, but I can't ignore South Australia's long history of failed and aborted renewable energy projects, which I think it kind of flows on to the broader side of things. I do have concerns there. Feasibility studies are frequently proven to be inaccurate, with resulting costly blowouts and millions lost through failed projects. The Hot Rocks Geothermal is one project, the Whyalla Hydrogen Power Station another, the Port Pirie Hydrogen Project yet another, and there are many more. These reinforce why I believe council should independently focus on local priorities rather than adopting state and federal government objectives. This does not mean I oppose practical environmental initiatives. On the contrary, I strongly support sensible, pragmatic measures that form part of a good council governance and deliver direct benefits to residents. These include the 6 priority projects. Initiatives which are grounded, achievable and provide clear benefits to our community are part of what we do. We can deliver effectively without relying on extensive ideological commitments, catastrophised scenarios, overstated urgency and flawed modelling. On those grounds, I can't support this climate action plan. I will note the report.
Any further points that haven't already been raised? Councillor Barnett?
Yes, well, I look to the evidence mainly of science that supports much of what we're doing with the climate action plan. I think particularly with planting the amount of trees, you know, to provide the shade and the other benefits. So I'm supportive of this.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Councillor?
I just have a question. How will Council measure whether these regional projects are making a real difference to Prospect residents, and will we receive clear updates on outcomes such as increased tree canopy, use of cool spaces, reduced heat risk and any external funding secured? How will we measure that?
I think some of those are measured by numbers and some of them are measured by completion of policies and execution of policies. And I did have that in my notes as well. It clearly states that they're measurable. So I'd assume that the author of the report would have some further insights, CEO.
So through you, Mr Mayor, Resilient East is an interesting body. Obviously, as a vehicle of ERA with additional members, Tea Tree Gully and City of Adelaide on board, it's a vehicle that relies, at least in part, on funding from Green Adelaide. There's accountability through those provisions and also through reporting back to the member councils that will bleed into ERA minutes. But also I fully expect, given that many of these projects will require direct action and funding from council through budget processes, that members will have direct interest in those particular projects, but more broadly other projects as well. I'm sure reporting is going to be possible. Mr Delena, can you potentially speak more to that?
Certainly through the Mayor. I think point 4 of the motion tries to pick that up in the sense that effectively there'll be further, the intent is to bring further updates to the council key junctions, which is effectively when we're seeking a approval to progress those projects, but also on a delivery. One of the things that we've been speaking about internally as a group is that we, once the council adopts if it does adopt the upcoming environmental sustainability strategy, we'll look to embed some annual reporting on that strategy and the actions that are being delivered, of which we'd embed the recap as part of that if it was supported tonight.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, look, I'll be very brief. As some of you know, I was recently been on leave and I was standing at the top of the rim walk at Kings Canyon and I got talking to this guy who's a filmmaker and he's actually making a film about climate change. He said, can I interview you? Which we did later that night at the Kings Canyon hotel or restaurant thing. Anyway, it was really interesting to talk about, he said, where are you from? I talked about the small council, he talked about my councillor role. And as we talked, the concept or the issues of climate change in small councils, even inner city councils, just kept coming up and up and up. So I think this is, as we talked about before, the parklands are our business. I think this is another one which is absolutely our business, whether it's about heat, whether it's about flooding, whether it's about solar, whether it's about batteries. I think, to be honest with you, it could go further than what it's going. And I know probably Councillor Standard might even agree with me on this one, that where we can find community batteries, we should do it. Where we can find climate adaptation activities that also reduce the cost of living for residents, we should be doing it. So on that basis, very, very happy to support this. And I think the Resilient East, I think there's a south and a north and west as well. There's a couple of them. I think they do some really interesting work. Whether they go far enough, though, is probably the question I've got in my mind, but I'm looking forward to maybe some reporting back about the impacts for us.
Thank you, Councillor Grube. I'll head back to Councillor Standard.
Thank you. I urge everyone to support this, even if you only support part of it. I prefer you support all of it, even if you support part of it. Every little thing we do has a compounding effect in the long run. Every small thing is valuable. This might not be the thing that we want in the end, but it's a start, and we have to make a start. So it's great. Even a start, even a small thing, is a big thing in the future.
Thank you. Putting it to the vote and taking it parts. Part 1, all those in favour? Against?
Sorry. Yeah, part 1.
Carried unanimously. Part 2, all those in favour? Against? Motion carried.
Division.
Stan, you voted yes.
Bang him this time.
You did.
Oh, my back appreciates this.
Once.
2 more times yet.
Part 3, all those in favour? Against? Motion carried.
Division.
Part 4, all those in favour? Against? Motion carried.
Division.
Thank you. Moving on to 10.4, Audit and Risk Committee meeting, 20th of July 2026. Recommendations on page 246. Look for someone to move and choose to either endorse or note and decline parts 2 and 3. So do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Nelson.
I kind of feel weird putting this one forward as a member of the Audit Risk Committee, but yes, very happy to.
Endorsing.
Endorsing and endorsing.
Would you like to speak briefly to the motion?
Briefly, yes. I'll do my best to do brief. So, as member of the Audit Risk Committee, I simply like to acknowledge the work undertaken by the committee at the July meeting. It was a long one. We considered a broad range of governance, financial and risk management matters, and I believe the committee continues to provide meaningful oversight on behalf of Council. Importantly, the committee didn't simply receive reports. Where improvements were identified, we made recommendations including strengthening the Treasury management policy to improve reporting, governance and accountability before recommending its adoption to Council. And we also gave detailed consideration to the asset management plans, which were fantastic, and we're satisfied they provide a strong framework for managing Council's long-term assets, while discussions on borrowings reinforce the importance of continuing to identify practical debt reduction strategies over the coming years. Again, fantastic meeting, and I commend the committee's recommendations to Council.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nelson. Do I have a second? Councillor Stanton. Would you like to speak to the motion?
No, good, thanks. I think it's all been said.
We'll just test the waters on that. Are there any further points to raise that haven't already been covered? Oh, it hasn't already been said.
No, it hasn't been said. I just had 2 questions, and they're fairly brief. The first one is around Broadview Footy Club. Is there any light or colour or anything additional we can that can be provided to us? I wasn't at the committee meeting, obviously, around what actions are now expected around Broadview?
That was part of it. That was a confidential part of the.
Well, it's in the minutes.
It's in the minutes.
So, through you, Mr Mayor, members, I think it's pretty clear based upon the leases and licences update that there are some challenges with the facility, and I think there's an expectation now, of course, that we'll go through a process with the club to work through those and bring something back to Council in the coming months. I don't think that's a secret. We do expect that the club will cooperate, and we genuinely hope that they'll take on board some of the feedback that they received through the committee and will receive again through staff. And I know, Mr Mayor, you've been in touch with their board as well, and with their president. So we're doing our best to work collaboratively with them, and we do expect we'll be bringing information back to Council in the coming months.
Excellent, thank you. And just as a point, the minutes, the link to the minutes and the agenda papers were in the paper.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think I was breaching any confidence by asking that question.
It was discussed on a conference, but probably that we didn't return.
Released.
Yeah.
The financials, I think.
Okay.
Financially.
Just my second question is around the procurement exemption. So there was about $350,000 of procurement exemptions awarded, and I get that this happens, it's not a problem. But I was interested that there were no PLP contractors listed in that list over the last 12 months. And from a previous inquiry, and I'll be very careful how I say this, I did receive information that there was a procurement dispensation for a number of specialist consultants as part of the PLP project. So I'm just curious as to why they weren't listed and reported back to the Audit and Risk.
Ms Taylor, Mr Pearce, are either of you able to shed some light on that? Ms Taylor?
Through the Mayor, I would have thought that the observation around procurement exemptions, dispensations for a couple of consultants in the 25-26 year would have been a PLP element, albeit unsure of the nexus between that and what appeared in the audit risk report.
Was it, if I may, was that report an annual report or was it a quarterly update? Because if it was a quarterly update, I have absolutely no reason to have expected any exemptions in that list.
Through the chair, Lita and I did, the finance manager and I did double check this. My understanding there wasn't any PLP that came to light, but that could be timing, and I'm happy to take that on board. Just double check the room.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe just out of session, just to, and if there were any, if that can be reported back to auditors. Okay, thank you. Otherwise, I support the motion.
Thank you. Any further things that haven't already been said? If not, I'll head back to Councillor Nelson to.
I think now it's all been said.
Let's put that to the vote before someone changes their mind. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, on to item 11, reports for information. Reports for information can be taken on block, resolved on block. But first I'll test the orders. Would anyone like to pull out 11.1? I'll pull that one out briefly. Would anyone like to, a bit of a moot point, pull out 11.2? So we're going to then discuss them. So I just pulled that one out to clarify that I had a planned meeting with the Deputy Mayor, which I didn't attend, but then we did meet informally on the Friday.
We did.
So I'd consider that we met. That's okay. I think the highlight of the month for me was that the community art show was very well attended, and there was probably still 50 people in the gallery at 7:30, 8 o'clock or thereabouts, just enjoying each other's company, and there was a really good vibe. Congratulations to everybody from an internal point of view to put that show on in its 48th year, and it certainly is a cornerstone of the fact that the City of Prospect has long treasured the arts. And I made mention, I felt a little bit Billy Bragg on the night, and I said, you know, for all those people who say that council should just focus on roads, rates and rubbish, well, come along to these sorts of events and I think you'll be proven wrong. So that's the only reason I want to pull that one out. So I'll move that and would appreciate if someone could second it. Councillor Barnett, would you like to speak to the motion at all?
Just I concur with the community art show. It was really great.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Councillor Greg?
Since you pulled it out, I just had a couple of questions. In terms of the ALGA attendance from yourself, and can't remember who else, Deputy Mayor, are we going to have a report back in terms of what happened? I noticed that you had, there's networking drinks, yes, but the dinner, you met with Minister Annika Wells' advisor. I think that's the only federal things in that list, but are we going to get something back? I think we talked about that when we nominated people to go.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second one, in terms of the meeting with Minister Champion, I presume that was PLP related?
Yeah, we had the potential to raise a couple of other items on the agenda, but we felt that it was probably more prudent to focus on that. We will circle back and request a further meeting with Minister Champion to discuss two matters, one being the Harrington scenario, the gift that keeps on giving, and also in relation to Jump In CEO.
It was, Mr Mayor, council powers in relation to dilapidated properties and managing demolition.
Yeah, great. And the second one was Minister Clifton Tone is just interested in what you might be able to say about that one.
Yeah, so that was to discuss potential state funding opportunities for the PLP project specifically with regards to the MRF. Thanks. Any further questions? If not, I won't sum up and I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 11.2, recommendation on page 259, looking for a mover. Deputy Mayor Nelson, would you like to speak to the motion? A seconder. Councillor Stanton. Has it all been said yet? Yes. Any further points that haven't already been raised? If not, I'll take it that that doesn't require any more summing up, and I'll Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. 12.1, council member reports and all briefings. Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Noting a small spelling error, unless you've changed your name on mine. Oh, it's been fixed. You can take this one and take it home and just got one of the letters wrong.
I won't frame it.
I was thinking of the fire at home. And thank you, Deputy Mayor Nelson, for your report. Moving on, 12.2, motions on notice. We've covered 12.2.1. So moving on to 12.2.2. Notice of motion, support and networking for sporting and community clubs, put forward by me, so I'll move it. I had a very well crafted speech which I conveniently forgot to bring with me. But what I will say is that this motion is designed to build upon the great work being done by staff, and I think we'd all agree that we've made great leaps and bounds in the last couple of years with the support that we provide our sporting clubs. It adds what I think is an important layer to that support. The motion came about as a result of discussions I had with a couple of presidents, and anyone who was at the Audit and Risk Committee would have felt the pain almost from the president of Broadview Football Club basically saying, I took on this role as a volunteer and I really didn't know what I'd be walking into, and now I'm expected to be an expert at this and an expert at that, and so on and so forth. And so I've had a couple of those conversations with presidents or leaders at sporting organisations, and so the objective of this motion is to replicate what a lot of us have in our professional or personal careers, which is a peer network. We would all have peer networks in some way, shape or form, which allow us to come together with those who do something similar, either from a work or an interest point of view, and share ideas, share a bit of a heavy load at times, lessons learned, and just support each other. So the concept in one part is to provide that forum for senior leaders. This is not to send anyone from the club as a rep, it's only for someone on the exec committee, preferably the president, to come along and help build those networks and learn from others who are going through the same thing as what they are. So that's the first part. Second part is to essentially, as someone put it when I was having this discussion, help clubs better understand how to do business with council. So we do provide support already, and there are external networking opportunities, but this is a very specific one, just around how the mechanisms, I just put two words together, the mechanisms of council work and how clubs might align what they want to achieve with that. A very simple example is the timing of budget decision making with regards to putting forward suggestions and proposals for potential capital works, maintenance plans, and a whole range of other things. So again, it's to build on the great work the staff has been doing at the moment. You'll note that it's a pilot. We'll give that a go in the first instance for one iteration if this gets approved, and then based on the feedback on the success of it, it could be something that we would schedule in to happen on an annual basis. So I am going to move it, and I'm calling for a seconder. Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Yeah, this one's interesting because when this came to us in the last meeting, I think it was, and then you removed it, I probably wasn't going to support it just because I didn't see the value. But as you mentioned before, following the Audit and Risk Committee, it reminded me that our club executives are general people and they're volunteers. A lot of them don't have any experience, a lot of them haven't gone through these things before, and they need that support network. And I think having this sort of community group with those executives is going to add a lot of value to some of our sporting clubs that do have either inexperienced or young or first-time presidents and secretaries and everything else to get involved and to ask questions and ask for support. So as much as, we can all have our minds changed, my mind's been changed the last 4 weeks, so absolutely commend this motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Councillor?
Can I suggest a slight variation just to tidy up the title of the motion and the actions? So the notice of the motion says support networking for sporting and community clubs, yet point 1 just says enable leaders of sporting clubs. So could I add the and community clubs? Sporting and community clubs as a suggestion. Leave first and the mover and the second.
That's a no from me. I'd probably go the other way and remove it from the title upon reflection because it was specifically aimed at sporting organisations. So that's a no from me.
Okay,
Which means
I'll
it's on
talk to it and
Yep.
then it might get supported as an amendment. So I'll move an amendment to include and community clubs. And I'll speak to it.
Well, we'll need a. You're moving.
So I'll speak to it first
Yep.
for the reason. So yeah, I would support it if it is for sporting and community clubs, and I'll speak more about that. So over the last few years, I've been in touch with the Italian Club down on Churchill Road, and they offer social dancing and connection, and they've also got facilities and they run programs and things like that. So they're very much in a similar position to some of our sporting clubs. So one of the things about the existing Northern Sport and Recreation Network is the fact that it covers both, and I think it's really good to consider both because it captures people at different ages and different requirements, and there's a bit of, obviously there's going to be a bit of crossover in the middle, and there might be slightly different things for each club. And I think just with the lens of the Prospect Lifestyle Precinct as well, it's you know, if we're looking broadly at, you know, how we're connecting with our community, it'd be really good to capture that. So it's just an opportunity, and it might not get supported, it might come back in another motion, but I'd really like to see community included because it does pick up on some of those other clubs that also have facilities. I know we've got some groups that maybe, you know, your Sea Scouts or whatever that aren't necessarily, you know, sporting clubs or things like that, and they could all benefit from that kind of promotion.
So just for consistency, did you want community after sporting clubs in point 1 as well?
Oh yes, please. Yes, sorry. In point 2?
No, point 1 in the last
point 1,
sentence.
sorry.
It says
Yeah,
council and
thank you for
sporting
picking
clubs.
that. Yeah.
See what it says between council and sporting clubs.
And sporting clubs.
It should be and community clubs there as well.
And oh yeah, on the third line.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, and community clubs. I welcome support from that one. So I'm looking for a second.
Yeah, that's a councillor. Is there a seconder for this motion? This amendment? Would you like to speak to
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Nguyen?
Yeah, we have like a lot of community groups as well, and I think they align to sporting clubs as well, so they would need support also. So I feel like it's right, sporting and community clubs to include all groups and community groups in the community, sporting and community.
So, any further discussion? Oh, we're voting on the amendment. So we're voting on adopting the amendment, so we can't, no one can speak to it. No. Yep, okay. All right, so we're going to vote on the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Casting vote. I'm against.
So back to the original motion then, I guess.
Yep. Okay, so where do we get to? So mover, seconder, Councillor Backer. So now we're open to debate from everybody else, I believe. Apart from Councillor Backer.
I'll just make the point the title is inconsistent with the motion, so someone might want to tidy that up. Because if you look at the motion title, it is clearly around community clubs, and I think could be interpreted that way afterwards.
You mean the title up there?
So we could, the advice is we can take it out of the title. It's more the content of the motion that we're voting upon as opposed to the title. So we could remove it from that without requiring a variation. Any further discussion points? Anybody else? Councillor Nguyen?
I just want to say the reason why I voted against it because I think sporting clubs and community groups, whilst they're similar, but I think they're quite different. And if you have a group of leaders who specialise and focus on community issues, it will be really different, you know, for a community leader to come in and, you know, speak about, for example, the Italian group, you know, cultural activities or whatever. So I'm thinking like, you know, maybe in future it could be like another pilot project for community leaders. But I think in this instance, maybe the mayor was trying to get sporting community leaders to come together so it's more focused and targeted. I don't know if that's right or not, but that was the reason why I didn't support the variation.
Councillor Hall.
I think this is a great idea. My past husband was actually secretary of a football club for 10 years, so I'm well aware of the quite unique and complex sort of goings on in a sporting club. It's I would really have to say quite different to just a community club. There is a lot to it, and I think you could easily drown or be lost if you are new, you know, running a club. And quite often these clubs, I've seen it before, can have a big changeover at one time where it's not just a new president coming in, and things can go downhill pretty fast. And I think it's good to, and they don't always have that backup, you know. And the last thing you want is such a large, you know, these large sporting organisations to sort of falter a bit. So I think this is great. Yeah, it's support it.
Okay, Councillor Bennett.
Yes, similar reason. I just think if we keep it sporting, and you know, there may be another opportunity to have a similar thing for our community clubs. It's a pilot program, so we'll, and also I think it's so complicated. You know, I'm involved with state associations as well as some local ones, and just the work that treasurers have to do these days, you know, and if they've got involving liquor and licensing, and or if they're charities, it's just a minefield of red tape. And also, I think the other side of it that the Mayor mentioned was about building our relationship as a council and the staff. I think we've learned quite a bit when we've now gone down, you know, with the how we've done it with the leases of the clubs that community and sporting clubs in our properties that we own, and managing the leases, and by you know, having people actually talking and coming together and learning about things and resolving things together, I think that's a good way to go.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Councillor Greg.
Look, I'll support the motion. I would have supported the inclusion of community. I think the nexus between community and sporting can be very, very small. It can be very, very big. But equally, if we've got this, you know, North Adelaide Football Club in the room, we have a very, very small sporting group in the room, that nexus is also going to be quite large. So I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. I was thinking about the second variation for the night on this one, that maybe we, in point 2, we say consideration of the forum becoming an annual event, comma, including, I'm thinking about how do we not lose the community club in the future. So something along the lines of considering as a word, considering including community clubs in future iterations, or someone else can word that better.
Considering having an additional networking event for community clubs.
Yeah, my thinking is, if this works, why wouldn't we extend it to community clubs? I still have the view that they should bring them all together, because I think you're going to double the work for the staff.
Should we say consider a similar model for community clubs?
Consider, yeah, perfect.
And that leaves it a little bit open to definition
yeah,
when we get down the track.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with that.
So I think that's all I want to say about that. No, certainly support it. There was something else in my mind. Oh, that was a question. How many sporting clubs do we have in the city of Prospect? Do we know? Like, I'm just trying to work out what's the volume of people in the room for this.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'd say 10 to 12 that you define as a sporting club.
Yeah, and how many would we define as a community club?
Well, in my summing up, I will cover that. Anything further, Councillor Greig?
No, that's all. Thanks.
Yeah. Any further discussion before I grandly sum up? So thank you for discussion. Just a couple of quick points. I've been in that position as a president of a sporting club, getting all sorts of things wrong, and I'm certainly sure that if I'd had experienced people to lean on at that point in time outside my sporting organisation, it would have been smoother. The reason that I wanted to focus on sporting clubs is because I do think there is a commonality there, and you can quite easily define a sporting club. It's much harder to define a community club, and I think that opens it up to watering this down. I do appreciate the variation, which means that we can consider a similar model for community clubs. But there's a comradeship amongst that group, and I think that if we spread it too wide, it might not have the same impact. So let's, if it gets voted up, I look forward to attending if it's held. Well, we don't know when it's going to be held yet, and then seeing if it's a good idea. If it is, then we can take the idea further. Just one shout out with the people that I speak to as presidents. Andrew Murray's name keeps getting repeated as he's done a great job. I know that he's not the only one in the team. Katie's there as well, but the way that team runs and the bonds that they've created with the sporting organisations in particular has been fantastic. And I always say that community clubs and sporting clubs do our job for us, and so the better we can support them, the better they can do that. So let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Another one for me, 12.2.3, recommendation page 264. So probably the most value I got from ALGA was the trade hall and the broad range of excellent software solutions targeting local government. And there was a few that caught my eye. Now I'm not the only one who was there, and not the only one who interacts with software in my day-to-day life, but I did immediately see some potential opportunities to further investigate ways of improving our internal systems and processes. The outcome I'd be looking for, if that did go any further, was to deliver more value for the community by removing manual handling and improving the opportunities for very experienced staff to get out there and do what they're employed for, as opposed to being bound by, in some cases, manual processes. And we all know that technology is moving very, very quickly. Things that might not have stacked up a couple of years ago certainly make a lot of sense. There's a lot of considerations to be made when procuring software, and including a whole range of things that we all come across. And so I think this is just an opportunity for us to load up the team with ideas and opportunities there, and then for them to take over and do their job, which I have all the confidence in what they can do. So this is simply an opportunity for us to share our insights, and then the team will pick that job up. It's again not cutting across the bow of what the staff's doing. I hope it's not perceived that way. It's simply expanding the wealth of knowledge that could be around the room for a better outcome. So I'll move that motion, and looking for a second. Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Sure. This one's interesting and disappointing, which is odd. Only because I had a couple of motions prepared for this meeting that I could no longer put forward when I heard this was coming up. So, reason for that is after attending, as the Mayor mentioned, after attending ALGA in Canberra, I had a couple of motions for 2 software solutions that would make it easier and better for our community and everything else. And this tends to be now an easier way for us to sort of to have a chat with executives and to sort of say, hey, have you seen this, and do you want to do your own investigation and everything else. Obviously, it still leaves scope for councillors to bring matters to the chamber, but I think this makes it much easier and much smoother process for staff to do their own investigation. So unfortunately, I missed the chance of bringing most motions forward, but I commend this one.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion, any points that haven't been made? Councillor Becker.
All the questions. Yeah, look, I totally agree, because at the end of the day, IT is a tool by which modern councils do their job. And I think if we don't have the latest tools, then we're not as efficient as can be. Of course, I've been looking over the border, and Charles Sturt and Marion in Port Adelaide have just signed a long-term strategic agreement for AI. I'm just wondering, is this something that is placed just for the City of Prospect, considering the second smallest council? Or is this something that we're looking to do as a region, like the West East Regional Alliance? That's my first question.
I'll have a go at answering that. My intention here is not to get custom software built. It's to look at off-the-shelf available solutions that are being used elsewhere in the state, to use those elsewhere in the states as reference points to see what their experience has been with the solution, with the vendor, with the roadmap, with the integration required, with the support, all the critical things that you need to look at. Have they achieved an ROI? Has it met their expectations? And so this is my intention for this is to look at it from our perspective, and other people may gain benefit from the lessons learned if we do go down the path of some of these, but we can certainly gain benefit from looking at what's happening at some of the larger councils. I'll go Councillor Barnett, then Howard.
Yes, that just jogs my memory about in investigating this. Could this be the possibility for a local government association research grant possibility? So it's sort of like right up the alley of doing that, because those research grants do take on board, well, what can work with one council or a network of councils and benefit the other councils in South Australia. So it might be a possibility.
The motion is worded broadly as to not to prescribe what the outcome looks like, so we can keep an open mind, and it invites elected members to put forward their views from that perspective. Councillor.
Well, it's just I'm aware we've got, existing software. We've complained it's clunky and it's just, to a certain extent probably not fit for purpose, could be much better, and we've often had difficulties trying to, it's being bumped off for funding. Should we, the wording here says investigate like these new systems, should we not be looking at the whole of council sort of, we've got, my understanding is a bit of software happening in our systems. Should we not sort of incorporate this into sort of one, I'm not too sure what you've seen and what this software is. Is it multiple, that's the question now, is it multiple software or is it just one particular system that you felt was something worth exploring? Or
I saw Deputy Mayor Nelson would have seen a number.
A number of.
But the concept really is, again, the motion is worded broadly, and I guess I wear a couple of hats here. My day job is running a software company,
right.
so
yes,
the last thing I'd advocate is a wholesale throw it out and start again model. I think there's potentially lots of ground that could be made by incorporating specific specialist solutions that do a great job, that integrate with the ecosystem that we've got here to deliver a better outcome. So that's the way that I would approach it. If you try to change too much at the same time, you don't know what's worked and what hasn't worked.
Yes, yes. So you'd be looking at the...
I don't know what we'd be looking at, but my experience is that you don't immediately jump to try to...
It's just the wording of that. I didn't know if it kind of covered sort of looking at the what we have as a whole and then looking at how it could be improved with newer software. But look, I think it's great. I think I'd support that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Cost is always that's something that comes later. We present what I think is suitable and comes to us.
Thank you, Councillor Hollett. Any further discussion?
Look, I'm supportive of the intent. I'm just not sure I'm supportive of the process. So asking us to come up with ideas by the 14th of August for 7 of us or maybe 6 of us who are not IT people, asking us to comment on essentially IT systems, where 2 elected members have seen some in the context of the trade show, is probably means we're going to get is your comments and the Deputy Mayors and maybe Councillor Tobacco's given her interest. I just don't know. I don't have any visibility of the council systems. I know that we have a Civica thing, and I know that no one likes it. And I know that there's been conversation for many years about how badly it works. So I accept there's a problem. I just don't know what my value add is. I think this is a job that administration should be doing, not elected members. That being said, we have visibility, so I certainly support that. Until going up to the process, but to ask me to come up with wholesale system improvement ideas within 17 days is you're probably not going to get anything from me, to be honest. The other thing is just I think the comment that someone else made is we are the second smallest council in Metropolitan Adelaide. We should not be going along doing this ourselves. And I've said this about Civica for many years. If there's a problem with Civica, how do we? Presumably we still use Civica, do we? Do we still use Civica? No?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we've just upgraded to the Enterprise Resource SaaS version.
Yeah, the West version. So I've been told for many years by council staff, we've heard this in budget bids, that Civica is not great and it's not fit for purpose for what we want. But I just think us going and potentially procuring something that is fit for purpose for us and us only just feels to me like a world of pain later on. All that being said, I'll support the motion. I just, I'm probably just honest to say I can't give you what you're looking for because I don't know enough about systems to know what's good and what's not good, and I wasn't privy to the trade show at the Alka Conference.
If you like.
No, that's, yeah, we'll share it.
Thanks, Councillor Burke. Any further discussion? Just to summarise briefly, so there's no perfect way forward with this, but I think making a start, building on top of what the staff has already done, I should say, seems to be a reasonable way to go. You are correct in saying that Councillor Deputy Mayor Nelson and I were at the conference. It doesn't stop people researching potential solutions. The pricing models that most of these specialist solutions operate under is based around ratepayers. So if you put 4 councils together, then it would, and there was 100,000 people, then it would be a commensurate price as it broke down to us and the other 3 councils. So from that point of view, it didn't really feel like the economies of scale would be there of doing that. We're not looking at building customised add-ons and plugins to it from that perspective. And generally, the feedback from the vendors that we spoke to there at the conference was that part of this is helping us understand whether there's a business case or not based on past experience. And as Councillor Holler pointed out, cost is a factor, but our return on investment is a more important measure, and so it can cost a lot, but if it delivers a great return on investment, then it should be strongly considered. But yeah, I don't think there's any perfect way through this. It was just an opportunity to potentially add a bit of value to the work that the staff's already doing. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, so 12.3 questions with notice, there are nil. Urgent motions without notice, nil. Late reports, there are nil. We'll move back into confidence. So we'll give that recording a minute to